I'm Ernie Humphrey, Educational Programs Leader for Performative, the largest online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Reducing Risk in a Dynamic Environment with the Cloud. Understanding and effectively managing financial and operational risk exposure is a challenge faced by all companies. Finance leaders are increasingly taking ownership of risk management at their companies in addition to taking on more direct ownership of company growth initiatives. Today we'll discover how finance leaders from fast-growing startups to the Fortune 500 are turning to the cloud to help them identify, mitigate, and manage dynamic risk exposures across the enterprise and allowing them to focus more on driving company growth and shareholder value. Our content will also feature a case study detailing how one company successfully leveraged the cloud in elevating the effectiveness of its risk management programs while driving successful growth initiatives. I would like to thank Host Analytics, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible and delivered at no cost. A quick note on today's agenda. First, we'll hear a presentation from each of our featured speakers. Then we'll move to our interactive Q&A session, where we will spend the remainder of our hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you. So if you have any questions at any time, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. We can't promise to get all of them in. We'll do our best, and we'll follow up afterwards. And any questions we did not get to. A few logistical notes about the webinar. A link to today's presentation and video of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees within 24 hours of the event. Those who would like CPE credits will need to answer all polling questions during the event and should have pre-registered for CPE credit. For any questions on CPE credit, please send an email to cpe@performative.com. Again, we encourage you to ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel at any time during the webinar. Finally, you'll be asked to take a short survey regarding the webinar, and we greatly appreciate your feedback regarding our event today, as we always strive to improve the ROI we offer our event attendees for their valuable time. Quick word about Performative. Performative is the largest online community and resource for senior-level corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related leaders. Performative connects corporate finance leaders to provide instant advice and insights on the tough financial and strategic challenges they face every day. Let's get started by introducing today's first speaker, Ian Halifax, CFO, Host Analytics. Ian has vast experience in fast-growing software and solutions companies. Prior to joining Host Analytics, he was CFO at Grass Valley, a leading provider of technology solutions for broadcast media companies. Prior to that, he spent 4 years as CFO at Wind River Systems, an embedded operating system software provider, driving significant increases in revenue and profitability prior to its sale to Intel. He was also CFO at Micromuse, a provider of network management software, which was acquired by IBM. As CFO at Macrovision, he helped the company grow from less than $500 million in revenues in 1999 to over $200 million in revenues in 2004. In the early part of his career, he held numerous finance positions at technology companies, including Sun Microsystems and Wang Labs, as well as spending time at KPMG. Educated in the United Kingdom, he holds a BA from the University of York and an MBA from Henley Management College. He is a certified public accountant and a certified management accountant. It is now my distinct pleasure to hand the floor over to Ian Halifax, CFO, Host Analytics. Ian, please take it away.
Thanks, Ernie. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening, wherever you are. Ian Halifax speaking. As Ernie said, originally from the UK, but a long-time Silicon Valley and Bay Area resident, so please don't be confused by my accent here. I want to spend the next 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes or so, talking about how, first of all, from a very personal point of view, I think about risk in the CFO role and how we can use systems and tools, and particularly the cloud, to assess, reduce, and perhaps indeed minimize that risk. I've been a CFO for a long time now. It's almost 20 years, and I've had, I think now, 7 different CFO jobs, public and private. My hair is completely white. I'm actually not that old, but much of my time as a CFO is thinking about risk and sources of risk. Risk is a huge driver of surprises, which are in turn a huge driver of cost. So if you think of that almost mathematically, if we as CFOs, as finance professionals, can get a better handle on risk, what drives risk, we can minimize surprises and also reduce costs. And those are, I think, key parts of our role, whether one's a CFO, a controller, a VP of finance, a financial analyst, and so on. Therefore, if we manage risk, reduce surprises, have a much more lower cost organization, I think as CFOs we're running much more productive, effective, and efficient functions. As I look at the areas of responsibility that we have as finance people, it can be a pretty broad list indeed. I mean, I've got 10 different functions there, which I've managed in 3 or 4 of the 7 companies I've been CFO at. Of course, there are the basics of accounting and reporting. A big part of any CFO's role is the outlooking, planning, forecasting function. That really is the business's early warning system and needs to be very, very carefully put together. Where I think we add value with our partners in sales and in marketing is giving the business the analytics and intelligence to make better, smarter decisions on where to invest our dollars. Of course, there's a huge regulatory overlay, the SEC, SOX, etc. Tax, of course. Let's not forget about managing cash. I'm sure all of us spend a lot of time, arguably too much time, with both external and internal auditors. And then a large part of my time, both in public and private companies, is spent managing both board relations and, of course, investors, both public and private. M&A can be a huge driver of change and, of course, risk. There's lots of data that says something like 6 out of 10 acquisition transactions don't provide value post-integration. And underpinning all this is the systems or applications infrastructure. Without that being robust, solid, up-to-date, and evolving, those first 9 functions get very, very difficult indeed. So I really see 3 broad risk areas that get exposed in any rapid change environment. First of all, there's control risk, which can be a function of having old, inflexible, inadequate, old systems which simply don't provide the level of control required. And fundamentally, that leads to having very weak or poor audit trails. That control risk obviously leads to significant deficiencies or even, in fact, misstatement. And that's the second point there. I mean, if we have multiple data sources, which is common in many companies, and manual processes, there's always a high possibility of misstatement. We also spend a lot of our time forecasting and doing outlooking, and if we've got manual processes, multiple data sources, there are always data accuracy problems and problems with timeliness. Many financial analysts spend more time collecting, gathering data than they do assessing, analyzing it, and adding value. So really, 3 key risk areas exposed by rapid change. To address that, a CFO needs the following list. It really is making sure we have the basic, efficient, underlying processes and systems to support growth or change in the business. Having the right metrics on demand, almost on demand, meaning all the time, and the ability to spend a lot of time running rapid forecast scenarios. Flexibility is very important. If we have those things, that gives us as a CFO or as a finance team a very credible voice with the management team, with the board, with investors. And it lets us move very much more rapidly in getting things done in the business. part of this is as our business changes, we have to evolve, adjust, and modify our systems. And so it's great if one can have speed and flexibility in changing our systems infrastructure. And my sense, my own personal sense of what best-in-class means is that, frankly, there are no surprises. The right performance data is there, is available on demand, and we as finance people function effectively as that powerful early warning system for the entire organization. And by that I mean investors, board, management team, employee base. If we accomplish those top three things, it means we have happy auditors, no regulatory issues, and finally, and last but of course by no means least, the CFO sleeps well at night, and that's always important, I'm sure. I've walked around at least 2 public companies saying that Excel is not an ERP system. And yet, everywhere I've worked, Excel has been used extensively in close processes and in financial planning. Also, email is obviously highly prevalent. Those 2 applications, though useful, bring us a long list of risks. There's no workflow, no security, no privacy, no version control, and their functionality, Excel in particular, is limited. A company of a certain size, of a certain complexity, Excel just doesn't function well as a planning or reporting tool. What is EPM? EPM stands for Enterprise Performance Management, and put very, very simply, it's the integration of close reporting, analytics, and planning capability. EPM is an acronym that gets banded around. It's often also termed CPM, Corporate Performance Management, or Finance Planning Management. It's not really the broader notion of business intelligence. That's a superset, nor is it ERP. It really is the linkage and tying together of that circle you can see on the chart. Again, close, reporting, analytics, and planning. And they really are a virtuous circle. If the close goes well, goes quickly, is error-free, it makes for very efficient, effective time reporting. That time reporting drives the time capability for superior analysis. And that analysis supports better planning. Better planning, hopefully, should lead to better results. On the right, you can see the 3 key benefits of that integrated capability. It's speed, it's accountability, and at the top, by far most important, is insight that leads to action and better results. So, how does EPM reduce the 3 risks we pointed out earlier? Fundamentally, 1, it strengthens our overall control environment. It makes for much stronger, controlled, trackable financial consolidations. Audit trails are built in. Second, and absolutely vital in my mind, is the improvement, a fundamental and profound improvement in data integrity, where there's one central, common source of the truth used by everybody, one common data set. And then, away from Excel, that leads to much lower prevalence of manual errors. Once we have that better control environment and better data, then our forecasting capability, our planning capability, our ability to do high-grade, high-value-add analysis gets much better. And then, with those three legs to the stool, we as finance people can provide much better, warning, intelligence, insight, input, value add to the rest of the organization. EPM has been around some time, and rolling out an EPM project is not without risk. This data comes from a consulting firm and looks at some of the risk we see when a company rolls out an EPM solution. Expectations aren't met. Of course, there are always budget overruns, date slip. A project that's supposed to roll out in 6 months takes a year. There's a lack of end-user acceptance. Projects stall, stops, or breaks. People pick the wrong vendor, and vast amounts of money can get spent on services. So, although EPM in concept represents a great way of mitigating risk, rolling out EPM in an on-premise, traditional manner brings its own risks. So how does the cloud help? Well, let's walk through each of those points one by one. EPM allows us to easier meet expectations by the ability to really start small and grow as you go. There's no need to have a huge upfront investment that isn't itself very risky. And as these arrangements are typically time-based, they're subscriptions, the vendor has to keep on his or her toes to make sure that your needs are met, that the solution works, because that business must get renewed every year. So there's much more skin in the game for a cloud vendor. Cost. Our data says that we can install our EPM solution in 1/4 of the time and at 1/4 of the cost it takes to put in the equivalent on-premise solution. There are few hidden costs in our approach, and our expense is highly predictable and ongoing. As I said earlier, target dates tend not to get missed because, again, our rollout time is much shorter. It's 1/4 of the time, and so people don't get ground down and worn out by a long implementation. The user interface, is very simple. It's just a browser, single sign-on. A lot of work and time has been put on the UI. So if you can use a browser or use Excel, you can use our solution. On the project stalls, well, if you have a very short rollout time, there's less risk of it stalling. And I think very important here is that there's not a huge need for IT to be involved in a rollout this solution. The project tends to be managed and driven by the finance and accounting team, not IT. Then finally, wrong vendor selection. Well, in the cloud world, good and bad for us, there are much lower switching costs when compared to an on-premises system. If after 1 year or 2 years, one vendor is not performing, given the lower cost and time to implement, it's not that hard to switch. And all cloud vendors are continuously and aggressively investing in their product and making sure it's always up to date. So again, vendor selection here is arguably a much lower risk proposition. And budget, again, our costs are typically 1/4, 25% of those for the equivalent on-premise solution. Some data from Forrester, the market research group about why software buyers are choosing cloud solutions. It's about a number of the things we've talked about already. It's about agility, improved focus, speed, having the solution be kept up to date by a faster, or in some cases almost continuous releases, and of course low roll risk, and finally OpEx, not CapEx. Is the cloud secure? Big question. Really quickly, the answer is as secure as any on-premise solution. By getting away from Excel, that risk is mitigated. No waiting for patches. We go through regular audits and testing of our solution. And typically we have service level agreements that are higher than those with internal IT. And of course we have a highly distributed, redundant hardware infrastructure. What we see here is that more and more companies are thinking now about a cloud-based DPM solution. This gains from BPM partners. A year ago, just more than half of the companies surveyed were thinking about the cloud solution. There's been a 5-point increase in 2013. So a cloud-based approach is becoming much more common currency in the finance world. So to summarize, Excel and email are not enterprise-class finance solutions. They're because they're available, because they're familiar, but they increase risk, as we talked about earlier. We have seen over the years extensive deployment of enterprise management solutions, but they have been expensive, they take a long time to roll out, they can be cumbersome offerings, and they're tough to switch out and aren't that flexible. What we've seen with the rise of companies like Salesforce or Workday or ServiceNow is that the vast majority of enterprise applications are in time moving to the cloud. And our sense is that, again, across the range of enterprise applications, that shift is accelerating. And EPM, Enterprise Performance Management, is very much part of that long-term technology shift or technology wave. So with that, thank you for your time, and I'll hand the call now back to Ernie.
Thank you very much for the great content, Ian. We'll now launch our first of 3 polling questions. As a reminder, for all of you on the webinar, after CPE credits, you'll have to answer all of our questions during the webinar. Of course, we appreciate everyone's consideration in answering all the polling questions we have today during the webinar. Again, we encourage you to please ask questions via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel. As we wind down the polling question, I'll leave that up for another 30-45 seconds. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Shane Riddle, Manager of Financial Planning and Analysis, Planar Systems. Shane is a seasoned finance professional entrepreneur with varied industry experience in software, high-tech, manufacturing, and digital advertising, and has worked with companies ranging in size from startup to Fortune 500. He currently leads the financial planning and analysis functions at Planar Incorporated, a leader in the high-end global display market located in the Portland, Oregon area, where he has recently played a leading role in the implementation of a new ERP system and cloud-based performance management suite. In his role at Planar, his group is looked upon for new product, business planning, strategic planning, budgeting and forecasting, and other general business analysis. Shane earned his BS in Business Management from Corbin University and an MBA from the Atkinson Graduate School of Management at Willamette University. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close our polling question. And it is now my distinct pleasure to hand the floor over to Shane Riddle on Planar Systems Incorporated. Shane, please take it away. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ernie, and I'm glad to be on here with you guys today. And I'll just correct you really quick. It's Willamette University, which no one outside of the state of Oregon ever pronounce this correctly. So if you ever do happen to come up to Oregon, and we're in the Willamette Valley, beautiful Willamette Valley, which is where Portland and Eugene, Salem, kind of the main population centers of Oregon are. So I won't hold that against you for the mispronunciation, but that's where I got it. So quickly overview kind of what I want to look at here for the case study portion of what we're looking at. And you know, Ian had given us a list of, you know, the 10 things that he felt, you know, as CFO is really looking at. And, you know, just very quickly, you know, I'd say that what I'm going to touch on here today and hits on about 6 out of those 10 things: the planning and forecasting, analytical intelligence, regulatory compliance, internal external auditing, investor and board relations, and system infrastructure. Those are all things that regularly come up in my life at Planar, and are certainly things that I help try and make easier for our CFO. So with that, I'll just give you a quick introduction to kind of who we are. Planar is a high-tech manufacturing and R&D company. We make premier display solutions and monitors, video walls, all kinds of different products, really focusing on, I know, what our customers need, and with over 3 decades of experience. We've got about 350 employees. We've been in business, publicly traded for about 30 years now, and consider ourselves to be one of the premier display providers around. We've got headquarters here in the Portland, Oregon area. It's actually in Beaverton, but we've also got offices in Albi, France, and Shanghai, Italy, and Taiwan, and have those are sales organizations as well as operations. We manufacture in Europe, the United States, as well as in Asia. So we've got a reasonably complex business model, and which requires a strong reporting and analysis EPM system. And just quickly there, a couple of our customers. You can see we work with a lot of names that you're pretty familiar with. Our products range from architectural displays to LCD video walls, the kind of things that you'd see in a hotel, or if you've been to Hollister on Fifth Avenue in New York, we took 180 screens to cover the front of their store there with a wave pool at the bottom, make it feel like you're at the beach. So we do a lot of custom type things. Let's see, I'm trying to think other corporate lobbies, meeting rooms. As you see here, we've got our transparent displays, so we're leading the technology on that, on TVs that you can actually see through. So you might have a display that allows you to see through it and show product merchandise inside. If you ever have a few minutes to see YouTube, the Corning Day of Glass, there's a great video on that. But that's some of the more interesting technology we're getting to work on right now. But just a couple of quick shots, you know, a video wall that we did recently for the Oklahoma City Arena, as well as one in Paris here. Just a lot of interesting uses of displays, and you've probably seen them. You know, we're in airports, trucks, hospitals, ATMs, retail stores, homes around the world. So more than likely you've experienced Planar products and probably didn't even know it. But that's not why you guys are on today. I just wanted to kind of give you a quick rundown of who we are to understand, you know, the complexity maybe that we have. And, you know, we are a manufacturing business. You know, we doing, you know, I think are around $175, $180 million this year. Just so a quick rundown. Just stepping in now to the 3 levels of risk that I kind of want to talk about. The financial risk, you know, we're a publicly traded company, so our guidance that we give the street is very important to us, making sure that we're hitting that, making sure that we're on plan, that we're always within compliance, that we don't break any confidentiality rules, insider trading, or just even HR data. The technology side of things, looking at the service level risk and, you know, my team's credibility within the organization, system failures, and the complexity that can come with legacy systems, as well as finally we'll touch quickly on team risk, and which is something that you may not be as obvious, or something that you might have thought of, but we'll talk about that just a little bit. So first of all, we deliver, on the case study side of things here, probably like a lot of you, we have an annual plan that we deliver to our board. And it's very important to us that we meet that plan. And having a good EPM system has been huge in allowing us to effectively manage our reporting and planning process. We do an annual plan, but we also have a monthly rolling forecast that we do, and that process is much easier now that we have an online system that we use. We, like any companies, we can't handle having surprises, and so we do our best in our planning process. We actually roll out our monthly forecasts down to multiple managers throughout the departments, whether it's R&D, sales, marketing, G&A functions, or operations around the world. We are able to push out through online templates, and just anybody that has access to an Internet Explorer browser can get on and do our work in our planning modules. We're able to do that. So it allows us to easily push things out and to have control over it, which helps us to reduce the amount of surprise that we might have in our process. Something that happened that came to my mind when we were doing this is, in the old world, forecast misses were a lot more common. And I think of a story where we had a manager that had taken an Excel spreadsheet and had created his entire R&D plan for the year based on a faulty set of assumptions. And I'm not exactly sure where the communication broke down came, but it did. And so a lot of decisions were made by that VP of R&D. And as it turns out, he had a bunch of bad data in his Excel spreadsheet. And so he really, and on the bright side, he had cut too much from his budget. He was trying to hit a number. He knew what his number was, but he had bad inputs in terms of salaries, in terms of what he was going to spend on projects, in terms of what his facility allocations were. So when all that added up, he was trimming to a number that was wrong. And so he went through a lot of cycles and effort to get to a number that he really didn't need to. And so that's just one example of something where, and actually it took a while for us to catch that in that instance. So we had some bad data flowing through, and then eventually couldn't figure out why this was happening, and then realized that, well, that he was working on version 1 when really there was version 5 was our new forecast. And so that's something that we're able to mitigate quite a bit now by everything being centrally located. You have this one source of truth now, where whether it's your facilities allocations or your labor and overhead rates, whatever it is, it all is in one place, and you don't have to worry about sending out multiple versions of Excel spreadsheets, which tend to either contain mistakes or people don't necessarily even check their email. Maybe if you send it out through an email template, or you use a SharePoint system and send it out that way, then they didn't go download the latest version. And so there's just no risk of that in versioning when you're using an online system, because you are and in finance, we're the ones that control what those rates are. We control the templates. So that's been a huge advance for us. Another area that we can minimize risk is in our currencies. And since we're on multiple continents and countries, we operate in multiple currencies, and we are able, through our system, to create templates that are common across the world, but have different currency and exchange rates. And those rates are we able to use our own forecasts and change those rates as needed centrally. So the manager that's in the local country doesn't have to worry about what the exchange rate is at the time. He can just model it in euros or whatever it is. But here back at the corporate headquarters, we're taking care of that, doing all that planning here. and we can hedge our risks and look at it and plan at the rate that we feel are appropriate. So from a finance and a planning standpoint, we've been able to make pretty big strides forward in this way. Another way that we can do that is increase our accuracy is we were able to run multiple scenarios to determine a range of outcomes, doing sensitivity analysis, but doing it all in one place where we can then record the outcomes, and we're not worrying about version control within Excel. So we're able to do better analysis, we can identify our trends more quickly, and we can adjust as needed. And the other thing, quickly before we get on to the next slide here, is we're able to use workflows, which, as Ian mentioned, in Excel it's pretty difficult to try and create a workflow, but here we have one central place for data storage, not sending out 100 emails with versions, and we can administer it all through this online platform. We can approve budgets, we can move them, we can alter them, and it's all done fairly easily. Another area that we are able to reduce our risk is the area of compliance. And as a publicly traded company, obviously we need to make sure we are in line with our SOX audits and insider trading rules and those areas. And so we are able to implement security. We have role-based user administration in our system that helps us to ensure that the right people are seeing the right data at the right times, and we have full control over that. We have audit logs showing us who logged in, when they logged in, what actions they took, so we can fully see the system, which from an audit perspective, this year I sat down with our SEC compliance officer and was able to quickly show him who has access to what data, are they on the insider trading list or not, how is that affected, and so it really was actually a pretty simple process to go through that internal audit and then give him the confidence that he needs to know that we are doing things right from an SEC perspective. There's also the confidentiality side of it, and we, like a lot of companies, don't share our HR data, and so people don't know what the salaries are. But we also have different overhead rates and benefits and things that that we keep private, 401k participation and things like that, and we're able to administer that in our cloud-based solution without worrying about the weak privacy that comes from spreadsheets. So we're not sending out spreadsheets with salary data and then worrying about what was the password on that, or did it get forwarded on to somebody that it should not have. It's all managed in a central system, and we use multiple approval rules in our system. So we have department managers, project managers, approvers, and admins, and all these different roles have different rights. So there are certain people that can see salaries, but the important thing is, maybe the manager A, he can only see the salaries of the people on his team, but he might have a lead in his team that he also wants to be able to input into his budget, and so that person can also go into the system and give input on what the project spending is going to be, but that person would not be able to see anything having to do with HR or any of the projects that they're not involved with. So we can easily and quickly adjust what the security is so that people can see the right roll-ups and ensure that the certain data, salaries, role, things like that are not falling into the wrong hands. And another nice thing about the way we've moved now to our prior system is that our system automatically syncs with our payroll system. We use ADP, and that has a direct link. And we pull the ADP data in, and so it makes sure that we always have accurate, up-to-date salary information, so that when we are running scenarios, we've always got the right information. Looking at how we've able to minimize our service level risk, we as a team, our role is to provide the best information possible for our exec team and managers throughout the company so that they can make good business decisions. And when you have a bad system that you're built on, it makes it really difficult to do that, and you become irrelevant in the minds of your managers, And eventually they not only do they not ask for your help, but they begin to question the work that you do rather than rely on you. So making sure that we've got good data is really important to us so that we can be fully functional throughout our organization. And having a good cloud-based system allows you to avoid these long cycles like Ian talked about. And we don't have upgrade risks. We don't have to worry about what's the software path looking like going forward. Does the IT team have time to implement it? And all those sorts of worries. We also have system failure risk, and this is something that was very real for Planar recently when our legacy system was actually getting to the point where the IT managers were telling us that we had a chance of catastrophic failure, and that was just not something that we could stomach, as a finance team and accounting, and obviously if we were to have a catastrophic failure and not be able to do our reporting and close our books. So having someone else host our EPM is a big benefit to us. And I made a note here. Is basically, we're in the display business, not the IT management business, and so that allows us to step out of that role of having to worry about infrastructure and worry more about the analysis and the reporting and the business that we're involved in. And this kind of just piggybacks on top of that. We had, and this picture down here is not our system map, but I'll be honest with you, it doesn't look that different from a system map that we had just a few years ago. And we had systems for part management, project management, data warehouses, purchase order, purchase requisition systems, accounting, operations, ERP, email systems, customer service call systems, RMAs, reporting systems. And the complexity can overwhelm you very quickly. So we've been able to minimize some of the risk there and some of the costs by having a system that somebody else is dealing with that. And we've been able to actually eliminate a couple of the systems that we did that we used to host in-house. So those are no longer in-house. An EPM, if we had done it the traditional way, would have been one more system that IT would have had to manage. Now my finance team can manage this system, and which rapidly increases our response times if we need to make changes. It eliminates the barriers that we used to have in terms of there are times when you make an enhancement request or something that can take forever. Well, now we don't have to go through that process. We can make the change ourselves. And we don't have to know code. The system that we use, host, is easy enough that we can do it ourselves. So that's a huge benefit for us and allows us to respond much more quickly and reduce risk in that way. And finally, something that you might not think about is team retention. We actually, when I came here to Planar, I was shocked when I saw the green screens that we were running on, considering that we were telling the world that we're a world-class high-tech company, but we're using antiquated internal systems. And that just did not send a very congruent message. And and frankly, it was difficult. A lot of the things that we wanted to do were not easily accomplished. And so we actually had some exit interviews with some key employees after they left, and found out that our systems were part of the contribution to that talent churn. We had lost some people that had looked at it and said, you know what, you guys, you're not investing in your systems. That then makes them feel like they're not investing in people, giving us the right tools to succeed. And so by investing in a world-class system like we have now, I think we're really showing our team that we are investing in the technology that is necessary to be successful, and in turn, we're investing in them. So, our analysts and our finance team, they want to be analysts. They want to be improving the business. They don't want to be system developers. They don't want to be working on an old DOS prompt code-based system. So that is something that has been better for us since we've gone to the cloud. And also the key man risk is the first boss I had out of grad school had what he called his Mack truck book. And that was basically what to do if I get hit by a Mack truck on the way into work today. And there's always risk if you have a key person leave, but I really feel like by using a system cloud-based and a newer systems with these newer technologies, if I were to hopefully not get hit by a bus, but if I were to not be here tomorrow, somebody else could pick it up. And we don't have near the complexity that we used to have. Data is not hidden on personal drives, so there's not, we don't have that risk of losing data if a laptop dies or is stolen. It all lives in the cloud. We have common notes and templates that leave a trail for the next person to see. And sometimes that trail even isn't even for the next person, it's for myself. We might make budgets and templates, or we may have a project plan that is, we use the notes and templates are all online, and 6 months later when I look and say, well, why did we put $1 million in this line? It's because, oh, X, or why did the number change? And I can see my notes, I can see my trail, it's all centrally located, and or my analyst can see that, or I can see what they wrote when they were working with the individual manager. And the last thing I would probably mention is that there's online training tools available. When you have an Excel-based system, you're in a world where every spreadsheet is different, every company you go to is different, everything. So when someone comes to a new company, they have to learn, how do you do this? How does your spreadsheet system work? Who is the controller of this information? Where does it live? And it can be very complex, and the guy that made the spreadsheet might understand the logic of the 26 tabs that he put together, but the next person that tries to pick it up, it may not work. And over time, as if you're like me, you've probably seen this, is a spreadsheet that started with 6 tabs can grow to 10 tabs and 20 tabs, and pretty soon you have a monster on your hand. And if for the next person to pick that up can be very difficult. Turnover is a fact of life, and it's something that we all deal with. So when you have a solution that is easily learnable, it's also much more easily passed on from person to person if you have turnover in the role, whether that's planned or unplanned. So that is something that we've been able to increase as well. So just in general, wrapping up, I'd say that our use of cloud-based EPM has been a very positive influence for us, and in that it allows us to be more accurate in our reporting. It allows us to have much more timely responses to our managers, to our CFO, and our CEO, and it is something that has certainly improved how we do business. So that wraps up my portion.
Okay, thank you very much, Shane, for your great content and insights. I'm now going to go ahead and launch our second polling question as we launch our Q&A session as well, to make sure that we take full advantage of asking the questions today and tapping the knowledge of our great speaker. Again, those of you after CP credits today need to answer all the polling questions, and again, for everyone online, and we appreciate your consideration in answering the polling question. And again, we encourage you to please ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your go-to control panel. First question I will direct to Ian. You spoke a little bit about risk as a driver of cost. Can you give us a little bit more color behind how risk is actually a driver of cost?
Yeah. The best simple example is if you have unhappy auditors who aren't happy with your control environment, you will spend a lot more money every year, every quarter on your audit because they need to get comfortable with the data they're looking at. And if the infrastructure which pulls together that data is not robust, they will not trust it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Shane, next question is for you. Could you share with us the motivator for your company to pursue the cloud-based EPM project?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, we were on a legacy system, and our planning and analysis function was very disjointed. So we were looking for something that would allow us to simplify and increase our accuracy in our financial planning and forecasting. We also had our consolidation process was able to be improved quite a bit as well. But the primary driver initially was improving our forecasting process and allowing us to go to a monthly rolling system without massive administration.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shane. I'll direct this question to you as well. What other cloud applications does your finance team use in addition to the EPM?
So the host analytics suite that we use is our primary cloud solution. We actually do, we have some of our treasury systems, I cannot remember the name. I think we use Avalara for our tax systems that is all managed elsewhere, and there are a few different tools that we use, and you have to forgive me because I don't know all the names. I don't manage our treasury function. But the primary system that we're using is Host Analytics.
Okay, great. This question is going to be directed to you, Ian. You mentioned the 10 areas of the biggest risk exposures. Can you give us your insights as to the areas where you feel that finance leaders are probably missing the most in ineffectively managing those risk exposures? And the second part of that is which of these risk exposures have been the biggest thorn in your side throughout your finance career?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. Let me try and give a fairly succinct answer to that. I would say two things. One, I always, as a CFO, worry about a big surprise, some misstatement, some big kind of error that's highly embarrassing to me, the team, and the company, because that sort of surprise is hugely damaging to the organization and the function's credibility. So that's a big area of worry for me. I think that's one thing. The second thing I would say is where I believe a CFO, a finance team, adds real value is being that old cliche, the business partner to the CEO, management team, and the organization. That's really about making sure that there is data, intelligence, insight provided to the CEO and line management on the performance of the business. And that can be both financial and other operating indicators that help us make, as a team, better decisions and drive better ROI across a variety of different projects or programs. So I see EPM as being a fundamental driver of that kind of capability, helping the entire management team make better decisions based on better, more rapidly available data.
Okay, great. Shane, I'll kind of have a follow-up question to you. So in terms of the areas that you were talking about, what areas, top 2 or 3 areas do you think the EPM solution has been most effective in helping you mitigate those risk exposures?
Yeah, for us, and I'm going to speak my bias as the FP&A manager here, but the planning forecasting is by far probably the biggest thing in my world, and our analytical intelligence. The reporting systems that we're able to get by having a world-class reporting system allows us to spend much more time providing that value-add work rather than just spending hours. And I've seen in instances, you probably all have too, where you spend hours or even days massaging data to get it to a point where you feel like you can present it to an audience. And so getting it to a point where we very quickly trust our data, and I can just tell my analyst, hey, please help me with this, and I don't have to question where they got that data. So it allows us to do a much more robust planning cycle and to trust the data that we get out of that at a much higher level.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next question I will address to Ian. Can you share with us from your customers and your prospects, what are some of the demographics of companies in terms of size and industries whose finance organizations are adopting these cloud EPM solutions?
Yeah, it's a very, very wide range of companies. Typically, we have concentration in companies who have revenues from around $200 million up to around and above $5 billion. So that's the main area. But what we've also seen secondarily is that very high growth companies, tech companies out here on the West Coast, who need to make sure that their overall infrastructure keeps up with the growth of their business, have also been a very good customer base for us. So we have some of the major high growth names in the Valley in our customer portfolio.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you very much, Ian. Shane, ask you a question. I know you've done a great job covering this. I just want to kind of put a fine point to this. So in terms of the expected and then unexpected benefits of adopting this EPM solution, can you just list those, maybe focusing more on some of the unexpected benefits that you've realized as an organization?
Yeah, I think the expected benefits were increased forecast accuracy and ease of administration. Maybe some of the unexpected benefits, like you've talked about, or sorry, like the last slide talked about, was increased engagement from both our analytics team as well as the strong buy-in from our managerial team throughout the world. We've really had very little pushback in asking people to adopt this system, and people for the most part are comfortable with email and Excel spreadsheets. So moving to something that is cloud-based, it's going to take some training. Was a little bit of a risk for us, but what we found was that there was rather quick adoption, and even now there is a push for different folks to say, hey, can I get a license? I want to move in and look at reports myself, or can I do that? So that was probably one of the biggest benefits that we didn't necessarily anticipate, was the adoption throughout our operations teams in the company, using it to a level that we were very pleased with.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and launch our final polling question as we have our final question in the Q&A session. I'm going to address the final question to you, Ian. In terms of the cloud-based EPM world, can you share with us what's next out there as far as on the functionality side is concerned?
Yeah, I think it's two areas. One, I think we're always looking to improve our analytics capability. One, and two, I think being more mobile friendly also is an initiative for us that we're looking very, very hard at. So those are the two main areas.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the Q&A session, and we'll coordinate with our speakers in getting questions to any answers that we didn't get to on the webinar on performative.com. As a reminder, you'll be prompted to take a short survey once the webinar concludes. And again, we greatly appreciate your feedback. And again, if you have any questions about CPE credit, please send us an email to cpe@performative.com. We'd like to give a big thank you to Ian and Shane for their time and insights. They're clearly thought leaders in their field, excellent source of information on today's topics. Note that in the post-webinar survey, you have the opportunity to express your interest in being connected with either or both speakers and Host Analytics with just one or a few mouse clicks. Thanks again to today's sponsor, Host Analytics. And finally, a big thank you to our audience for your valuable time. We hope to see you again soon at another Performative event or online at www.performative.com. Make the rest of your day great, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.